Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna and welcome all the devotees on the line. Thank you very much for your time that you're dedicating to associate with Srimad Bhagavatam. It is extremely glorious and fortunate that you're able to do that, because otherwise life happens. If one is not dedicated and focused and committed to reviewing the videos, life happens, life comes in a way, time flies, and before you know it, it's time to exit. So dedicating time, making sure that this time is blocked out. And yes, here and there may be some events and activities, festivals, etc. But otherwise, focusing and dedicating the time to associate with Srila Prabhupada through his Bhaktivedanta purports, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is having that time committed is already a sign to the Lord that we are serious. Otherwise, there can be 108 excuses of why we don't have time. So thank you very much. We continue Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 6, verses 18 to 30. Very, very powerful verses and purports. Purusha Shukti confirmed. Om Jnanatimi Vandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swatantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Vipasindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastatya Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Puyusha Sarva Vedeka Satphala Sarva Siddhantaratnarya Sarva Lokai Dritprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kalidwando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prompt transital fruit of all the Vedas, O you enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual being to all the people of the world, O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshasha Rayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namaste. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisance unto you. By reading you, one attains pure, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone for your incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeko Bandhu Mat Sangi Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Man Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisance unto you. Asadu Sadhu Tadai Natini Chochataraka Hanamun Chakada Chinmam Premna Ritkatayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O give us saintliness to unsaintly, O uplifter very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest. My heart, my throat, accompany pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yatonvayadi Tarata Charte Swabhigna Swarat Tene Brahma Hidaya Adi Kavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yat Pratisarvam Risha Damna Swena Sada Nirasta Kwakam Satyam Param Dhimai. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of the prevailing personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and firm cause of all causes of creation. sustenance and destruction of the manifest universe. He's directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him did the material universe so temporarily manifest by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayana Upaisha Sabya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagavapadrita. O learned ones, in age of Kali, many but short lives, the quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always Narayana Namaskritya Narachevam Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance unto the personality of God and Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Radokchaja Hitika Pratyata Yatma Suprasiddhati. Supreme occupation, dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the soul. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyus Vairagyam Yanam Chayadahutukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of God Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires costless knowledge and detachment from the world. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajgnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth calls non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shoshadanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchisyan Mahatsavaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shranutam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ryadantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, Super Soul. In everyone's heart, in the benefactor, truthful devotee, cleanses desire from material enjoyment. From the heart of the devotee is developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Prashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Temasloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki. By regular tenants in the class of Bhagavatam, a rending of service with pure devotee. All that is troubled to the heart is almost completely destroyed in loving service unto the person of the Godhead, whose praise or transcendental song is established as an irrevocable. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharmam Parinishtaya Janmalabha Para Pumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic power, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Akama Sarvakamo Mokshakamo Daridi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajate Purusham Param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desires, without any material desires or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole personality of God. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna, and welcome again. Let us cover any feedback that you may have from last week's session, chapter 6, verse 17 verses. Anything that caught your attention that you want to refresh, recap, please share that in the chat. And while anyone is sharing, we will cover the power statement. Srila Prabhupada says in the 6th verse of this chapter, the parts and parcels of the Lord are endowed with specific powers for rendering service unto the Lord. Just as a big business magnate's son, I am empowered with specific powers of administration. The obedient son of the Father never goes against the will of the Father, and therefore passes life very peacefully in concurrence with the head of the family, the Father. Similarly, the Lord being the Father, all living beings should fully and satisfactorily discharge the duty and the will of the Father as faithful sons. This very mentality will at once bring peace and prosperity to human society. So very, very wonderful statement by Srila Prabhupada, accepted by Srila Prabhupada. We are empowered. We are given the ability, the empowerment to render services to the Supreme Lord. Rendering service to God is no ordinary activity. It is a glorious activity. And just as a father, a business magnate, Prabhupada says, he empowers his son. Similarly, Krishna also empowers us to engage in devotional service. And this should be natural. Just as it's natural for sons to serve their parents, their father, similarly, it should be natural for us to serve the Supreme Personality of God. Unfortunately, due to ill spiritual health, we do not have the tendency to serve the Supreme Personality of God. That tendency that is dormant, the tendency that is natural to us, has unfortunately been diverted to the service of everything else, everyone else, excluding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we need to become spiritually healthy so that we can now direct our attention back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And just as a faithful son derives pleasure in serving his parents, his father, who's a wealthy businessman, he doesn't need to worry about finance, and he's deriving great satisfaction from that service. Similarly, when we become spiritually healthy and we serve the Supreme Lord, we will also experience that satisfaction. And that satisfaction will be experienced in two ways: peace and prosperity, individually and collectively. This is the solution. Anything outside this will create an incompatible situation. There will be some lack in terms of what our experience of peace and in terms of prosperity. And therefore you find in today's world, unfortunately, people have no peace, very little peace, and people are struggling for survival. Yet the opportunity is available for us to experience peace and prosperity. And yes, it is not a quick fix solution. We've created the mess for billions of lifetimes, and there is no click of a button and there I got peace and prosperity. That's not going to happen. It means remolding our life. Prabhupada would use the words remolding, renovating, cultivating. So it's all about resetting our life, rebooting our life, upgrading our life. And this takes time. But at least if we are convinced of this, that's half the journey traversed. So Srila Prabhupada, through his Bhaktivinoda purports, the Bhagavatam is encouraging us on this path. All right, since there's no feedback or comments, let us continue. So we're going to cover today's from verses 18 to 30. Verses 18 to 22 is speaking about the spiritual and material world, comparing. Then 23 to 30, Lord Brahma is then going to give an answer to previous question that Narad Muni had also asked, and he's going to now expand on that. What is Lord Brahma's involvement in creation, and in this way also share with us very, very powerful example. Brahma is the first living entity, and therefore his experience is very, very pertinent to us. Mother Lash says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'm still amazed by the realization. Have I seen Krishna in everything material, by how it comes into being or is created by him? This then spiritualizes the way we see things. So in fact, nothing is independent of Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is Krishna. This fact is now burnt on my brain. I pray that it also gets burnt on my brain. Yes, the pure devotee, they see Krishna everywhere. And how do they see Krishna everywhere? Because they see Krishna's hand everywhere. They see Krishna's energies everywhere. In fact, it's amazing. The atheists, the non-devotees, they don't see Krishna anywhere. And the pure devotees, they see Krishna everywhere. So how is it that, the same scenes, the same environment is seen with Krishna and without Krishna? Not because there is no Krishna in front of us. It's because Atmavan Manyate Jagat. We see the world as we are. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So if our inner world is atheistic, is not Krishna conscious, our outer world will be atheistic and not Krishna conscious. If the inner world changes and we change our software through the mercy of the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad upgrade, create a new software called the Bhagavad upgrade. Version 1 is Canto 1, version 2 is Canto 2. We go up to version 12. So when we upgrade our consciousness through the mercy of the Bhagavatam, our perception begins to change. And the beauty is that once we rewire and upgrade and we start to see Krishna, Krishna's hand, Krishna's energy, we start to link everything to Krishna, that is becoming Krishna conscious. We are now becoming conscious of Krishna everywhere. Then what happens is that triggers greater purification, which then unveils deeper realizations, and most importantly, our attraction and affection and love for Krishna. So what will happen now is, now you will still see the same energy of Krishna, but now the perception is deeper. Prabhupada gives the example. Consider a mother who has a daughter, and the daughter goes to school. And there's also a maid servant in the house. There's also a gardener in the house. So all three of them, the gardener, the maid servant, and the mother, they come to the room of the daughter and they see the daughter's shoes. They all three, the gardener, the maid servant, and the mother, will all see the same item, the shoes. They will all relate the shoes that, yes, these are the shoes of this little girl. But the gardener will see the shoes, and yes, these are shoes of the little girl. That's it. The maid servant will see the shoes, and yes, these are the shoes of the little girl, and it needs to go in this place. The mother will see the same pair of shoes, that these are the shoes of my little darling. And she will remember her little darling. And memories of her little darling, kissing her, embracing her, her smile, etc., her talks, will come into her consciousness. So everyone is seeing the shoes, but depending on their relationship, what's inside the deep relationship or lack of it, they perceive the shoes differently. So it's the beginning to remember Krishna in everything, but it's not the end. It'll go deeper and deeper and deeper until whenever you see anything connected to Krishna, you hear anything connected to Krishna, you see anything connected to Krishna, it just, the heart becomes emotional. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced that at the highest limits of pure love. See the sun dune and you think of Govardhan Hill and you think of Giriraj. Krishna Pikyam Govardhan Hill, and the heart just becomes emotional. So that is the objective. That's the goal. Thank you for sharing that. Let us proceed. 18. Somritasya bayas yeso martyam anam yad atyagat mahi maisha tato brahman purushasya duratyaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of all immorality and fearlessness. And he is transcendental to death and the fruit of actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person. Krishna, and this is Lord Brahma, first living being. He's saying to measure Krishna, to understand Krishna is impossible. To understand the limits of his glories is impossible. And the Lord is totally transcendental. He's transcendental to death, and he's transcendental to all the fruit of actions in the material world. Yet, he is the controller of immorality and fearlessness. Prabhupada in the purport says, the glories of the Lord in the transcendental 75% of the Lord's internal potency are stated in the Padma Puran, Uttarakhand. It is said there that the number of planets in the spiritual sky, which comprises the 75% expansion of the eternal potency of the Lord, is far, far greater than the number of planets in the total universe composed of the external potency of the Lord. So just in terms of numbers, material creation is 1/4, 25%, and the spiritual world is 3/4, 75%. We know that the creation of God is unlimited. So the material world is 25% of his unlimited creation, and spiritual is 75% of his unlimited. And because of the infinite unlimited creation, the Lord's glories are unlimited and inconceivable to measure. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, the total universes in the external potency of the Lord are compared to a bucket full of mustard seeds. One mustard seed is calculated to be a universe itself. So if you just picture a huge bag of mustard seeds, one mustard seed is a universe. It's inconceivable. And you are in that one mustard seed, complaining. Yet, there's a whole bag of mustard seeds. And this whole bag of mustard seeds, which are all universes, with so many planets in there, so many living entities in there, is only 1/4 of Krishna's vast expansion. In one of the universe in which we are now living, the number of planets cannot be counted by human energy. And so how can we think of the sum total in all the universes, which are compared to a bucket full of mustard seeds? So yes, there's 14 main planetary regions, not just 14 planets. The scientists, they give different planets: Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, etc. So like that, the Vedas also give the main planets. No, that's only the main planets. They are innumerable. Number of planets cannot be counted. So it's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And slowly the scientists, as their telescopes advance, they're noticing, hold on, there's no, it's not just one galaxy. There's billions of galaxies with billions of stars. And it's like the more our technology advances, the more baffled we get, the more bewildered we get. It's like, where is this going to end? Then Prabhupada continues. And the number of planets in the spiritual sky is at least 3 times the number of those in the material sky. Such planets, being spiritual, are in fact transcendental to the material modes. Therefore, they are constituted in the mode of unalloyed goodness. 3 modes of material nature. Devi Sugunamai, Mama Turate. This 3 modes, the divine energy, the material energy composed of 3 modes. She manages the material universe, the material environment under the 3 modes of material nature. But in the spiritual world is beyond the 3 modes of material nature. Our interaction in the spiritual world is purely through pure devotion to Krishna. We do not interact via the 3 modes. The only mode that exists is Sudasattva, unalloyed goodness. Therefore, if we want to go there, we need to grow, evolve from ignorance to passion to goodness to pure goodness. In the Bible, it says to see fire, you need to enter fire. To see God, who's like fire, you need to become fire. So if we want to enter the spiritual world, we need to adopt the vibration, the frequency, the environment that is made up of there, that's constituted there. And that is unalloyed goodness. So we should not be satisfied with living on the lower modes. We should come up to the higher mode of goodness. Then we start embracing the process of devotional service, and it also is then applied or practiced in the variations of the modes, mixed modes. So we perform our services inflicted by these different modes. We need to purify that and then eventually come up to practicing pure devotional service, unalloyed devotional service. So it's a journey. It's a journey of improving every single day. The conception of spiritual bliss, Brahmananda, is fully present in those planets. Each of them is eternal, indestructible, and free from all kinds of inebriaties experienced in the material world. Let that sink in a little. We all are looking for existence that's eternal. We are all looking for bliss. And we're all looking for an environment that does not have any issues. Prabhupada says, any kind of inebriaties, any problems. That's what we're all searching for. Ask any person on this planet, that's what they're searching for. But they are searching for it in the wrong place. If you lost something inside the house, looking outside the house, you will never find it. You need to find or need to look for it in the place where you lost it. So everyone is looking for happiness in this material world. They're looking for eternity in this material world. They're looking for bliss in this material world. You're not going to find it. No matter who you are, what you do, what process you follow. You could be Einstein. You could be far greater than Einstein. Doesn't matter. You're not going to be blissful. You're not going to be free from problems, issues, and you're going to die. But if you look for it in the right place, then you will find it. And if you go to that place, you will experience it. So here we are now given the right place to search. Right? You're going, you're outside looking for this. Let's say you're looking for your cell phone. You lost your cell phone. You're looking, and somebody comes in. What are you looking for? My cell phone. Don't know where I lost it. Where last did you use it? I think I used my bedroom last. Well, then why are you looking for it outside? Can you go to your bedroom and look for it there? Oh, okay, let me go check. So then you go to the bedroom and you look under the pillow and there you find yourself. So someone guided you to look in the right place. You then had to go to your room and find yourself. Similarly, the Bhagavatam is guiding us to the right place. Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purport is guiding us to the right place. That itself is relieving. Just to know that is relieving. That yes, there's a place. That's my goal. That's where I'm going to. You'll be less stressful. So just knowing that information is empowering. It's powerful. It's peace giving. Now I'm on my journey to get there. Now, while on this journey to get there, because I have not reached there, I know that I'm going to experience the reality of this 1/4 of creation, which is temporary, Nirananda, not blissful, and full of inebriaties, full of issues, full of problems. And while going through that, I am happy to experience the problems of life because I know they're going to come anyway. But I do not take them seriously or as everything all in all because I know there's a higher goal and destination that I'm moving towards. So this is how we should see our life experiences. We are in the material world, we're going to experience, but we are moving in the right direction to get out. I normally give the example of, when you're traveling to India, India is austere. And, the climate is more difficult to endure. The food is challenging, especially from outside India. The water, cannot drink the tap water. The cleanliness and the state of hygiene is of a different standard, etc. So, when you're going for holiday and you spiritual pilgrimage, going through the trains, the rickshaws, the noise, the pollution, it's austere. And when you go to the spiritual place of pilgrimage, it gives you relief. You're happy, you're excited, engaged spiritually, but the journey is austere, and over time it becomes challenging. And now at the final lap of your journey, you're returning back home. And even though there may be some calamity while you're returning home, it does not impact you as much as if you did not return home. So in this way also, the calamities that are inflicted upon us, just drop it our shoulder. Yeah, I'm burning my karma. last, the last of it all. I ain't coming back here unless the Lord wants me to render service. But otherwise, I'm going back to the spiritual world, eternally engaged in the Lord's service. And even when I'm there and the Lord wants to send me anywhere else, at least from that journey, I will not be impacted because I will be in love with Krishna. Prabhupada then continues, each of them is self-illuminating and more powerfully dazzling than, if we can imagine, the total sunshine of millions of mundane suns. Can you imagine? Millions of mundane suns. The brain doesn't have the capacity. You can try it. 1 sun, 2 suns, 3 suns, a million suns. The brain does not have the capacity to imagine that. It's just mind-boggling. And that's how illuminating the spiritual world is. There is no darkness. The inhabitants of those planets are liberated from birth, death, old age, and disease, and have full knowledge of everything. This is why Prabhupada was so confident when he said Krishna consciousness can solve all the problems of life. Why? Because the 4 biggest problems of life, birth, death, disease, and old age, this is the biggest problems. And if you go to that spiritual environment, you're liberated from birth, death, disease, and old age. So life is perfected. They are all godly and free from all sorts of material hankerings. They have nothing to do there except to render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Narayan, who is the predominating deity of such Vaikuntha planets. Those liberated souls are engaged incessantly in singing the songs of the Samaveda. Vede Sangapada Brahmopanishad Gayanti Yat Samagaha. All of them are personifications of the 5 Upanishads. Tripadi Vibhuti, or the 75% known as the internal potence Lord, is to be understood by as the kingdom of God far beyond the material sky. And when we speak of Ekpada Vibhuti, or the 25% comprising his eternal energy, his external energy, we should understand that this refers to the sphere of the material. So we could use this except the Prabhupada is giving us as a basis or measurement of how close are we to get there. They're godly, they're free from all material hankerings, and there's nothing to do except rendering transcendental service to the Lord. So we need to strive to become godly, we need to strive to become free from all hankerings, and we need to strive to engage in serving the Supreme Lord 24 hours a day. Because if we do not cultivate these aspects, we will not be able to enter that environment. It is also said in the Padma Puran that the kingdom of God, Padma Puran, that the kingdom of Tripadi Vibhuti is transcendental, whereas the Ekpad Vibhuti is mundane. Tripad Vibhuti is eternal, whereas the Ekpad Vibhuti is transient. The Lord and his eternal servitors in the transcendental kingdom are all eternal forms which are auspicious, infallible, spiritual, and eternally youthful. How wonderful. If you have a body, a form that's auspicious, that's infallible, that is spiritual, and that's youthful. And then Prabhupada says, in other words, there is no birth, death, old age, and disease, because that's our experience. It's difficult to experience a body that's auspicious. It's difficult to experience or think, contemplate on a body that's infallible. It's difficult to conceive a body that's spiritual and that's eternally youthful. So Prabhupada is giving us a comparison of what we can relate to from our experience. And that is no birth, no death, no disease, no old age. How wonderful. Just that will be wonderful. But then Just negating that is not good enough. It's good, but not good enough. That's the material world. That's the material world. The neutral world is no birth, no death, no disease, no old age. The spiritual world is auspicious, infallible, spiritual, and youthful, eternally youthful. Now, when you, and this is Vaikuntha, when you take it to Goloka Vrindavan, the sweetness is amplified. That eternal land is full of transcendental enjoyment and full of beauty and bliss. Why wouldn't somebody want to go there? If it really exists, why wouldn't you want to go there? What's holding you back? What is it in this material world that you are so stuck on compared to what is the opportunity existing in front of us? Why wouldn't anyone want to go back there? This very fact is corroborated in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the transcendental nature is described as Amrita, as described in the Vedas. Utamritat Vashyeshanaya. The Supreme Lord is the Lord of immortality. Immortality. Did I say immorality in the previous? Yes, it's immortality. He can award immortality to his devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita 18:16, the Lord assures that whoever may go to his abode of immortality shall never return to this mortal land of threefold miseries. The Lord is not a mundane Lord. So just going back to the verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness. And he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada or Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person. A mundane master or Lord never allows his subordinate to enjoy equally with him. Nor is a mundane Lord immortal, nor can he award immortality to his subordinates. Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all living entities, can award all the qualities of his personality unto his devotees, including immortality and spiritual bliss. So here's another reason. In the material worlds, your boss, he will squeeze out as much as possible and give you as little pay as possible. He does not share all his returns with you. Krishna, on the other hand, he shares everything with you. So here's another reason to go back home, back to Godhead, to go back to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In the material world, there is always anxiety and fearfulness in the hearts of all living entities. Note, the keyword adjective is always. As long as you're in the material world, you're going to experience anxiety or fearfulness. You cannot escape that in the material world. And everyone is trying very hard. But the Lord, being himself the supreme fearless, also awards the same quality of fearlessness to his pure devotees. Mundane existence is itself a kind of fear, because in all mundane bodies, the effects of birth, death, old age, and disease always keeps a living being compact in fear. What a powerful statement. Mundane existence is itself a kind of fear. Because in all mundane bodies, the effect of birth, death, old age, and disease always keeps a living being compact in. The very existence of your life in the material world is fear. It's the nature of fear. And how can you be peaceful in such an environment? We pray Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Give me peace from Adidevic, Adibhotic, Adhyatmic suffering. Yes, you can pray, nothing's going to happen. Just words that are coming out. You should be praying and you should be moving in the direction where there is no Adidevic, Adibhotic, Adisuffering. Through your actions, through your words, through your thoughts, you should be moving in that direction. Then, automatically you'll be inspired. You'll experience the nature of the spiritual world. The more you move, the more you cultivate the natures of the spiritual environment, you will begin to experiencing it even while in this body. That's called Jivan Mukta. In the mundane world, there is always the influence of time, which changes things from one stage to another. And the living entity originally being avikara or unchangeable suffer a great deal on account of changes due to the influence of time. It's amazing how, if this take this purport, just see how many motivating factors are described. You can type in the chat and summarize in 1 or 2 words some of the aspects that Srila Prabhupada has already mentioned here. We need to drill it down. We need to memorize it. Because why? These are the reasons. This is the why. They say the greater the why of why you're going, why you're practicing spiritual, why you want to go back to Godhead, why you be practicing Krishna consciousness, the more reasons you have for the why, the more serious, the more dedicated, the more committed you will be on this journey. And Prabhupada is, giving us every aspect, every angle that one can possibly even think of. Prabhupada is giving it right here. We don't like changes. And they say in the material world, change is the only constant. Sorry, even though change is the only constant, you don't want the change. No, we need to adapt with the change. We need to love the change. That's like saying oil and water must mix. We'll make it mix. Don't worry. We'll keep trying. We'll make it mix. Good luck. You're going to keep trying for eternity. There are 2 different substances and they do not mix. So change, flux, time, influence of time does not resonate with you deep inside you. So no matter how much you motivate and inspire yourself, embrace it, ain't not going to work. Because deep within it does not resonate. See, it's only mentally, intellectually you're accepting it, but on the spiritual platform, it does not resonate. Why? Because in the spiritual world, there's a different nature of the influence of time. Prabhupada says, the changing effect of eternal time are conspicuous conspicuously absent in the immortal kingdom of God, which should therefore be understood to have no influence of time and therefore no fear whatsoever. No influence of time, that means no change, and that means no fear. As they would say, hallelujah. Haribol. That's where we want to go. So yes, we need to read this purport again and again. If somebody says, Prabhu, why should I be Krishna conscious? No, I'm not inspired of this Krishna consciousness. Well, give them this purport. In the material world, so-called happiness is the result of one's own work. One can become a rich man by dint of one's own hard labor. And there are always fear and doubts as to the duration of such acquired happiness. Tell me if Prabhupada is spot on or not. And we would not have thought of somebody said, okay, why want to go back to spiritual world to be happy? There's no depth. Here Prabhupada is giving us the depth, the deep tendencies of why we want to go there, the deep experiences. So yes, somebody can be wealthy and acquire all this money, and now they have all this opulence, and behind that opulence, without fail, without doubt, there's fear and doubt. Ask any life coach who's coaching multi-billionaires if this is true, and they'll tell you, hell yes. Because they're fearful. Yes, they will tell you if we lose it, we can do it again. But the more you become wealthy, the more fearful you become, because now when you don't have it, you're lamenting that you don't have it. That means, or rather, when you don't have it, you're hankering for it. And then when you have it, you're lamenting that I hope nobody steals it. So this fear will always be there. This doubt will always be there. But in the kingdom of God, no one has to endeavor to attain a standard of happiness. But in the kingdom of God, no one has to endeavor to attain a standard of happiness. Every living entity in the spiritual world, innumerable, inconceivable, an inconceivable number, no one. There is no hard struggle for existence. There is no paying of bills. There is no 8-to-5 job, working for a boss, grinding. Okay, what's there? Happiness is the nature of the spirit. As stated in the Vedanta Sutras, Ananda Maya Vyasat, the spirit is by nature full of happiness. Happiness in the spiritual nature always increases in volume with a new phase of appreciation. So not only will you experience happiness, which you can't find in the material world, but the nature of the happiness in the spiritual world is ever increasing. That is we cannot experience. It's like, really? Yes, but there is no experience of that. The converse experience is life is difficult. It gets more difficult. It gets inconceivably difficult. It gets unbearably difficult. It gets suicidal. So that type of experience we get here. Just reverse that. Happiness, more happiness, more happiness. And with that happiness comes a new phase of appreciation. You love God, the next moment your love has increased and your appreciation for the Lord has increased. That is why it is explained that the gopis, when they dress, when they put makeup, they're only dressing and putting makeup for pleasure of Krishna. This is the only reason. And when the Lord sees them, because their intention was they're dressing simply to give pleasure to Krishna, Krishna gets pleasure by seeing them. And when Krishna sees them, he smiles. Like you see this little baby smiling. And when Krishna smiles and they see that Krishna's happy, they feel so much joy, bliss. And when they are blissful, that just enhances their beauty. So they just became more beautiful. And because they became more beautiful, Krishna sees them even more beautiful. And he becomes more happy. And when they see Krishna even more happy, they become more blissful. So in this way, this is the spiritual experience. There is no question of decreasing the bliss. And sometimes you say, oh, that was a good kirtan. Oh yeah, those old day kirtans are, like good old days. That's the problem with the material world. That's the problem with material nature. If you say, good old days in relation to spiritual life, it means you have not practiced spiritual life. Because in spiritual life, you cannot say good old days. The days need to become better. The experience need to become better. The kirtans need to become better. Your service need to be better. Your experience need to be better. That's the spiritual environment. Lord Mahaprabhu said, Ananda Bodhivardham, ever increasing ocean of bliss. So if we say, yeah, it was better, 10 years or 50, well, then you have not been practicing spiritual life. Sorry to say. You have been practicing mixed with the material nature. If you truly practice as Prabhupada has described, this is the experience, even while in the material world. That is why if we are practicing devotional service, even here with all this lack in the material world, because spiritual devotional activity is transcendental. Prabhupada was saying that a picture of Krishna is non-different from Krishna because he's absolute. So that picture can act exactly as Krishna can act. Just contemplate on that. The picture can act just as Krishna can act. That picture is listening to, that picture is seeing you, that picture can respond perfectly. It can speak, it can do everything perfectly because it's not different from Krishna. So our practice should be increasing in every way. Our experience should be increasing in every way. If it's not, review how you are practicing. Review your state of consciousness when you're practicing. Review your intention, your motivation. What are you doing wrong? That's not giving you the proper experience. Just the practice of it. We have not even achieved the goal. Because the goal is, as they would say, deadly. Spiritually, blissfully deadly. When, I normally give it as an example, when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, when the souls of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when they would meet each other and embrace, they faint. It's like, what type of embrace is that? It's like people faint. Why? Because there's so much ecstasy, there was so much experience that the body, just like, short circuit, and they faint. There's a short circuit of happiness. And unfortunately, this body cannot tolerate that level of happiness. That is why Madhurya Kanambini, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that when you become a pure devotee, this body cannot contain that love, that pure, that ecstasy. You have to die, to leave. You just cannot exist here. There is no question of decreasing the bliss. Such unalloyed spiritual bliss is nowhere to be found within the orbit of the material universe. You're not going to find it here. Don't look for it. You're not going to find it. Including the Janaloka planets, or for that matter, Mahaloka, Satyaloka planets, right up to Lord Brahma's planet. You're not going to find it. It's the wrong place. But even Lord Brahma is subject to the laws of fruitive actions and the laws of birth and death. It is therefore stated here, Duratyaya, or in other words, spiritual happiness in the eternal kingdom of God cannot be imagined even by great brahmacharis or sannyasis who are eligible to be promoted to the planets beyond the region. Prabhupada is giving us access. Prabhupada is giving us the knowledge. Prabhupada is giving us the inspiration. Prabhupada is giving us the way to not squander it, to not misuse it, to not deviate from it, to not lose it. Like Prabhupada told Srila Bhakti Charumaj, give this one life to Krishna and see. I mean, you gave so many millions and billions of lifetimes to Maya. Big deal, giving one life away. You're not going to get it at all. So don't worry. Just give one life and see. There's one life. You've been giving millions of life. One life is not going to make a big difference. But give this one life to Krishna and see what happens. Experiment. Take up the challenge. Material life has not got you anywhere. Just see, when you were born in this world, where you were born, and all the troubles that you go through, that possibly were minimized by Krishna's blessings. So just see where the material world has taken you. So take up the challenge and give this Krishna consciousness a full try. And there'll be so many people that will complain, criticize, and blame you. That's okay. I mean, that's been going on for billions of lifetimes. Just give this one life to Krishna and then see what happens. And Prabhupada, very often he would end his lecture and he would say, you will never be a loser. You will never be a loser. You will always be the gainer by surrendering to Krishna. You will never be a loser. Or the greatest of the Supreme Lord. The eternal kingdom of God cannot be imagined even by brahmachari sannyasis who are eligible to be promoted to the planets beyond the region of heaven. Or the greatness of the Supreme Lord is so great. Just give me 1 sec. I just want to see. I'm missing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so that's correct. Prabhupada says, the greatness of the Supreme Lord is so great that the happiness in his kingdom cannot be imagined even by the great brahmacharis, sannyasis, but such happiness is factually attained by the unalloyed devotee of the Lord by his divine grace. So yes, we are seeking that grace. No one can compare. No one can even conceive this type of good fortune that's available to the souls of Kali Yuga. They cannot even comprehend it. Prabhupada has experienced it, comprehended it, and given it to us in his Bhaktivinoda. Prabhupada is saying, here's it here. And he's giving us the blessings. Prabhupada often would say, in one lifetime you can do that. Normally it takes hundreds of lifetimes to perfect one's life. The Prabhupada is saying, no, you can do it this lifetime. Why? His blessings are there. He's giving, he wants us. So we simply have to give our all in this process. And whatever lack is remaining, Prabhupada would complete that by his grace, by his mercy. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants everyone. He's Numa Mahavadanyaya. He's come to give the greatest gift of pure devotion, following the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan. Without any discrimination. It's available. It's rare. It's not the norm. We have to understand that it's not the norm. This is not a normal, process. It's not the normal event that goes on in every yuga. No, this is an extraordinary event. This is an extraordinary time span. And by some good fortune, we just manage and happen to be at this time, at the right time, right place. And we could say, it's some good fortune, but it's a practice of spiritual life that has eventually got us there. And then finally, we could say, as Prabhupada one time was, the devotee told Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, I was born in like a lower, hopeless family, and I don't have any piety and security to, be Krishna conscious. Prabhupada said, yes, I've created you. So yes, that is also there. That by Prabhupada's mercy, we are where we are. And by Prabhupada's mercy, we can go to what he's describing in this beautiful purport. The material, spiritual world. So keep this purport in mind, memorize it. All the points. So amazing. And you could use this purport as a inspiration booster. Every day, whenever you're feeling down, just read this purport. 2:16:18. It'll readjust, recalibrate. When you're flying a plane, you have a certain coordination, certain destination you need to go, and sometimes the wind blows the plane off. Readjust, recalibrate, and keep moving. So recalibrate. So this purport will allow us to calibrate ourselves back on track. If you're down, 2:16:18. 19, text 19. Padeshu sarva bhutani pumsa stiti padavibu amrita shemam abhyam abhayam trimudno dhyai mudashu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the supreme reservoir of all material opulences, which constitute the 1/4 of his energy in which all the conditioned living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exists in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings. Out of the total manifestations of the Sandhini energy of the Lord, 1/4 is displayed in the material world, and 3/4 are displayed in the spiritual world. The Lord's energy is divided into 3 component parts, namely Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini. So, in other words, he is the full manifestation of existence, Sandhini, knowledge, Samvit, and bliss, Ladini. These 3 components of energies of the Lord are also under the control of Balaram, Sandhini, Krishna, Samvit, and Ladini, Shrimati Radharani. In the material world, such a sense of existence, knowledge, and pleasure is meagerly exhibited. All living entities who are minute parts and parcels of the Lord are eligible to relish such consciousness of existence, knowledge, and bliss very minutely in the liberated stage. Whereas in the conditioned stage of material existence, they can hardly appreciate what is the factual existence, cognizable, and pure happiness of life. The liberated souls who exist in far greater numeral strength than the souls in the material world can factually experience the potency of the above-mentioned Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini energies of the Lord in the matter of deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from old age and disease. So yes, this energy exists, this experience exists, Sat, Chit, Ananda. It's connected to those three energies: eternality, existence, eternality, knowledge, Samvit, and bliss, Nanda. And those who are liberated, they have access to that. Conditioned souls do not have access. They will never have access. It is impossible for them to have access. What they have, Achit, Nirananda, Achit, Asat, and Nirananda. Full of temporary life, ignorance, and misery. So they do not have that experience. In the material world, the planetary systems are arranged in three spheres, or three loka: Swarga, Martya, and Patala. And all of them constitute only 1/4 of the total Sandhini energy. Beyond that is the spiritual sky, where the Vaikuntha planets exist beyond the covering of the 7 material strata. In none of the 3 local planetary systems can one experience the status of immortality, full knowledge, and full bliss. The upper 3 planetary systems are called Sattvika planets because they provide facilities for a long duration of life and relative freedom from disease and old age, as well as a sense of fearlessness. The great sages and saints are promoted beyond the heavenly planets to Mahaloka. But that also is not the place of complete fearlessness, because at the end of one kalpa, Mahaloka is annihilated, and the inhabitants have to transport themselves to still higher planets. So those in those higher planets, yes, they're fortunate, but they're not depending on Krishna. They have to depend on their own strength, and they have to move. Yet even on these planets, no one is immune to death. There may be a comparative extension of life, expansion of knowledge, and a sense of full bliss, but factual deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from old age, disease, etc., are possible only beyond the spherical material covering of the material sky. Such things are situated on the head, Adiya Murdashu. So here's a breakdown of the experience compared to the material world and the spiritual world in terms of the cycle of birth and death, the residence, the inclination, the nature of the souls, fear, forgetfulness, number of souls, manifestation of the Sandhini energy, and the experience of Satchidananda. And the Lord has different energies, different Shaktis. There's the Parashakti and the Aparashakti, superior and inferior, material. The superior energy, there is the Antaranga Shakti and the Tatastha Shakti. Note, we also part of the internal potency. We are also part of the spiritual potency, internal potency. And the Antaranga Shakti is divided into Sandhini, eternality, Samvit, chit or cognitive potency, and Ladini, pleasure-giving potency. The material energy, Apara Shakti, is basically expanded into the external energy by Rangi Shakti, material world. And then we have the different characteristics of the Sandhini and potency. It's basically eternality, the spiritual world, existential potency. So everything that exists is basically existing via the Sandhini potency. Then the Samvit potency, knowledge. Krishna knows about himself. The living entity can know about Krishna. So knowledge potency, the cognitive potency is Samvit. Sandhini potency under Balaram, Samvit potency under Krishna. And then Ladini Shakti, Ladini potency. Srimati Radhavani is the Ladini Shakti Moti. She is the bliss, Ananda, and all the living entities experience the bliss, different grades of bliss. Srimati Radharani experiences the highest bliss. And we can experience this through pure devotion to Krishna, loving Krishna, which is the manifestation of Srimati Radhavani. And in the material world, that love is adulterated as lust. And that is why lust is a very powerful potency, because why it's perverted of that. 20. Padastrayo bahischasam aprajanam ya ashrama antastri lokas twaparo griha medo brihadvrata. The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world. And it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow the vows of celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds. So now Lord Brahma has shared the material world and the spiritual world. What we find in the spiritual world, immortality and fearlessness, and Prabhupada expanded on that beautiful purport or verse in his beautiful purport. That's where we want to go. How are we going to get there? So, why I want to get there? Ticked. I've got many reasons why I want to get there. Now, the next question after why is how. How do I get there? What do I practically need to do to get there? And remember, I said, if you are not convinced of your why, if your why is not solid enough, then how? Yeah, it's okay. No. If somebody wants to be a millionaire and they seriously want to resolve the financial situation, they will try to find the house and get acting on the house. So now Lord Brahma is teaching us, sharing with us, what is the how? How do we get there? Spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, situated beyond this material world, and it's especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and do not strictly follow the celibacy vows must live in this material world eternally until they rectify their ways. So Prabhupada is going to share with us who's the spiritual world for. It's meant for aprajanam, those who are not meant for rebirth. And who are not meant, who are those that are meant for rebirth in the material world? Those who are attached and those who do not practice the vows of celibacy. So Prabhupada gives a very interesting profile. The climax of the system of Varnashram Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, is clearly expressed here in this particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. the highest benefit that can be awarded to a human being is to train him to be detached from sex life, particularly because it is only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned soul, that the conditioned life of material existence continues birth after birth. Not something the materialists would love to hear. And Prabhupada is not sharing in his Bhaktivedanta purports what you love to hear. He is giving you the medication. And here is the medication. The medication is that the whole Varnashram system is designed to take people from the lowest caliber to becoming perfect human beings. And the climax of that is to be detached from sex life. This is what human life is, or the conditioned state of human life is based on. Human civilization in which there is no control of sex life is a fourth-class civilization, because in such an atmosphere, there is no liberation of the soul encaged in material. If you see in today's world, right, from small, people are exposed to pornography, magazines, videos, online. This is the shackles of sex life, which binds the conditioned soul. And we know the four regular principles: no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex life. This is where it falls under also. So becoming free from this tendency is of paramount of importance if we want to go back to the spiritual world. So first we need to understand the danger. And even though I may be influenced or plagued by this disease, I accept that, yes, I have this weakness. I need to acknowledge the weakness, understand its dangers, and then be ready to apply the process to become free from this disease. And no matter to what extent or no matter to what extent the disease has influenced one, the power of devotional service will completely eradicate this disease. There is no force, there is no disease, there is no material conditioning, there is no sin, there is no material desire that can stand the power, the potency, the purifying effect of the practice, or the serious practice, serious and sincere practice of Krishna consciousness process that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Human civilization in which there is no control of sex life is fourth-class civilization, because in such an atmosphere there is no liberation of the soul encaged in material body. Birth, death, old age and disease are related to the material body, and they have nothing to do with the spirit soul. But as long as the bodily attachment for sensual enjoyment is encouraged, the individual spirit soul is forced to continue the repetition of birth and death on account of the material body, which is compared to garments subjected to the laws of deterioration. We must understand this point. Our problem is the body. Our problem is attachment to the body, to the material body. So if we increase the bodily attachment, we increase our bondage. And how do we increase bodily attachment is by engaging in sensual enjoyment. Sensual enjoyment means enjoyment related to the senses. So if I give pleasure to the senses, that strengthens the attachment to the body. And because I increase the attachment to the body, soul's attachment is increased, and therefore duration of birth and death is increased. So identification with the body, promoting the senses, sense gratification related to the body. This is detrimental. That's why if you take of all activities, sex enjoyment is the most powerful activity in the material world to intensify that attachment. Now, yes, Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita also elaborates where Krishna says, I am the principles of sex life which are in accordance with Dharma. But just exploiting unrestrictedly, that's dangerous. In order to award the highest benefit of human life, the Varnashram system trains the follower to adopt the vow of celibacy beginning from the order of Brahmachari. Brahmachari life is for students who are educated to follow strictly the vows of celibacy. Youngsters who have had no taste of sex life can easily follow the vow of celibacy. And once fixed in the principles of such a life, one can very easily continue to the highest perfectional stage, attaining the kingdom of the three-fourth energy of the Lord. It is already explained that in the cosmos, the three-fourths energy of the Lord, there is neither death nor fear. And one is full of the blissful life of happiness and knowledge. A householder attached to family life can easily give up such a life of sex indulgence if he has been trained in the principles of the life of a brahmachari. A household is recommended to quit home at the end of 50 years. Pancho sor davam vanam brajet, and live a life in the forest. Then, being fully detached from family affection, he may accept the order of renunciation as a sannyasi, fully engaged in the service of the Lord. Any form of religious principle in which the followers are trained to pursue the vow of celibacy is good for the human being, because only those who are trained in that way can end the miserable life of material existence. Principles of nirvana, as recommended by Lord Buddha, are also meant for ending the miserable life of material existence. So the practicality for householders is, as you age, your indulgence in material activities, the secondary Krishna conscious activities, should be reduced. We have primary Krishna conscious activities and we have secondary Krishna conscious activities. Primary Krishna conscious activities are like chanting Hare Krishna, engaging deity worship, reading Srila Prabhupada's books. That's direct Krishna conscious activities. Secondary Krishna conscious activities is like I'm going to work. I'm working 8 to 5. I get a salary. I use the salary to buy boga, buy clothing, maintain, pay the bills, maintain my Krishna conscious household. So that's secondary activities. As you get older, you're meant to be less and less engaged in those secondary activities and more engaged in the primary activities of Krishna consciousness, until one is completely absorbed in the primary activities of Krishna consciousness. So that's the natural progression. It's extremely important for youngsters, the young age, to experience monastic life, full time in the temple, morning program, etc., because that practice is extremely beneficial to regulate you, to be attached to the morning program, practice brahmacharya life. It helps one in future in the Grihastha ashram. For the brahmacharya and sannyasi, celibacy is important. For the Grihasthas, the standard is only for procreation, for raising God-conscious children. And that Prabhupada standard was you need to chant 50 rounds. And there's the whole Garbhadan Samskar ceremony that one has to perform. So that means one is engaging in this very powerful act, which we read in the previous chapter, where Krishna is giving that taste, because it is a very painful experience, but Krishna is giving that taste. So yes, it is a spiritual activity when seen and used in a spiritual way, so that one can bring and raise God-conscious children. Otherwise, we should try to avoid this indulgence in sex life. Now, there is gross and subtle. Gross sex life is very clear. Subtle sex life means you are still thinking about it in your mind. For example, Prabhupada said, watching ladies play tennis in a miniskirt. Then for men, that becomes subtle sex life. So we want to eradicate subtle sex life and gross sex life completely out of our system. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it impossible? No. How? By the process of Krishna consciousness. One is serious, so slowly be possible. But sex life is like fire. And if you want to become free from fire, don't put your hand in fire, because it'll burn. It's extremely powerful. It's a very, very powerful force. But you cannot go back to Godhead if you still have this disease. It's amazing how some groups of so-called spiritual and religious practices, they encourage unrestricted sex life. It's crazy. The Bhagavatam is saying there's no way you're going back to Godhead with that type of, the best home you're going to get is the home of a monkey. Yeah, you're not going to get back to the spiritual world, but you definitely will become a monkey or pigeon that mates 120 times a day, or become a rabbit. So yes, you can get these bodies because you love sex life, but spiritual life, if somebody says, yeah, it's okay, in fact, in the early days of Krishna consciousness, one guru even wanted to implement 3 regular principles of freedom. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication. The 4th one, don't worry. Sorry, we do not accept. Why? Because Prabhupada said 4. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex life. And no illicit sex life means no sex out of marriage. And then in another purport, Prabhupada says, even within marriage, who's is not your wife, is Krishna's wife, it's Krishna's property. So yes, marriage is a sanction Krishna is giving you, but that sanction is not eternal, because that property belongs to Krishna. It's there for you to be regulated, to transcend, to purify. And that's where the purity becomes the force. And it's possible. And this process is the higher, in the highest degree, is recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, with clear perception of ideal perfection. Although basically there's no difference between the process of Buddhism, Sankarites, and Vaishnavites. for promotion to the highest status of perfection, namely freedom from birth, death, anxiety, and fearfulness. Not one of these processes allow the followers to break the vow of celibacy. The householders and the persons who have deliberately broken the vow of celibacy cannot enter into the kingdom of deathlessness. The pious householders or the fallen yogis or the fallen transcendentalists can be promoted to the higher planets within the material world, 1/4 of the energy of Lord, but they will fail to enter in the kingdom of deathlessness. So you're trying to become celibate and you slip and you fall, you go high, but you not go out. Abrahat Vratas are those who have broken the vow of celibacy. The Vanaprasthas, or those retired from family life, and the sannyasis and or renounced persons cannot break the vow of celibacy if they want success in the process. The brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis do not intend to take rebirth, apraja, nor are they meant for secretly indulging in sex life. So, one time, Brahmananda was speaking to Srila Prabhupada in early days. Prabhupada was saying, yes, 50 rounds, chanting Hare Krishna before you can engage in sex life for procreation. And Brahmananda said, but Prabhupada, that's like 50 rounds. If I'm chanting 50 rounds, I'll forget the whole idea. Prabhupada said, yes, that's the idea. That's the idea. That the lusty desires that are there by chanting 50 rounds will get diluted, so that when you engage, at least you're engaging with the right consciousness to attract a spiritual being, a higher conscious soul, so that soul can be Krishna conscious. But yes, that's the idea, to forget, to give up tantalizing the senses. Why? Because you're not this body. What gives you pleasure is Krishna Bhakti, devotional service. Now, this is only possible by Param Drishtva Nivartate, if you acquire a higher taste through the practice of devotional service. Otherwise, even big scholars, big priests, big gurus, they fall prey to this disease, this obstacle. You cannot prematurely and artificially do this. You cannot cut corners. You cannot fool yourself. It's a very powerful force. But by sincere, serious practice, you'll get a higher taste, and then it will leave you. And when it leaves you, that itself is liberating. Such a fall down by spiritualists may be compensated by another chance for human life in good families, of learned brahmanas, or of rich merchants for another term of elevation. But the best thing is to attain the highest perfection of deathlessness as soon as the human form of life is attained. Otherwise, the whole policy of human life will be proved to be a total failure. So if you fail, no problem. You get another birth and you'll get another opportunity. But Prabhupada is saying, don't waste this valuable opportunity. Lord Chaitanya was very strict in advising his followers in this matter of celibacy. One of his personal attendants, Choto Haridas, was severely punished by Lord Chaitanya because of his failure to observe the vow of celibacy. For a transcendentalist, therefore, who at all wants to be promoted to the kingdom beyond material miseries, it is worse than suicide to deliberately indulge in sex life, especially in the renounced order of life. Sex life in the renounced order of life is the most perverted form of religious life. And such a misguided person can only be saved by chance he meets a pure devotee. To the Prabhupada Ki Jai. So yes, from brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, everyone needs to be very careful. We find in today's world, no embracing, woman, man embracing man. It's okay, you know, it's like accepted. No, we have to be very careful. Senses are very powerful. And yeah, you have the freedom to do that. And if that is increasing and inciting your sense, pleasure, and sex life, well, then I'm sorry to say, you cannot go back. There is, Krishna knows. Externally, you may show that, yeah, I'm not affected. And internally, there may be turmoil. And Paramatma is sitting in your heart. He knows that you're embracing this girl, young girl, or young girl embracing a young boy and enjoying it. And, you know, that's why in Vedic system, there was separation. There was that respect where you are honoring the principle of celibate life, and therefore you're appreciating that distance as a spiritual sacrifice, honoring the process, honoring each other's vows of celibacy, honoring the idea, the concept that we are on a journey to a higher destination, to a higher aspect of service to Krishna. Not like, oh, why must we be separated? You know, it's unfortunate. No, we have to understand the values. What are we upholding? What are the principles of our sampradaya? What does Srila Prabhupada desire? What is the objective? What are we trying to achieve? Otherwise, we can wash everything down. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very strict. Example is given of Chota Haridas. He went and got some grains, became attached or associated with the opposite sex. And the Lord became very, very upset. Srijat Mahaprabhu himself was very, very strict. Prabhupada did not even want to be left alone with his own sister, Pishima, Mother Pishima. Prabhupada was sitting with his disciple, servant. And Mother Pishima came to see Srila Prabhupada to speak to him. And the servant thought, oh, Prabhupada, sisters, let me go out. And he was ready to leave. And Prabhupada said, where are you going? It's the space, yeah. Said, just said, you should not you should not be left alone even with your own mother or sister or daughter. Because the danger is there, the power, the Shakti is there to pull you, to distract you. So we have to be very, very careful with that. 21. Shrishti vichakra me vishwam shashanan nashena ube yad avidya cha purushos tubhayashraya. By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both missions and the factual knowledge of all situations. So he's the only protector. The jiva, qualified by ignorance, wanders on the path of enjoyment, while he, the jiva, endowed with knowledge, wanders on the path of liberation. But the Lord is the shelter of both paths. So no matter if one is deviating or one is on the path of liberation, Krishna is giving protection to both. The word Vishwan is significant in this verse. One who travels perfectly in every field of activity is called the Purusha or the Kshetragna. These two terms, Kshetragna and Purusha, are equally applicable to both the individual self and the Supreme Self, the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 13:3, the matter is explained as follows. Kshetragnam chapimam vidhi sarvam kshetreshu bharata kshetragnayor nanam yat taj gnanam matam mama. Kshetra means the place, and one who knows the place is called the Kshetragna. The individual self knows about his limited field of activities, but the Supreme Self, the Lord, knows about the unlimited field of activities. The individual soul knows about his own thinking, feeling, willing activities, but the Supreme Soul, or the Paramatma, the Supreme Controller, being present everywhere, knows everyone's thinking, feeling, and willing activities. And as such, the individual living entity is the minute master of his personal affairs, whereas the Supreme Personality of God is the master of everyone's affairs, past, present, and future. Vedaham Samatitani, etc. Bhagavad Gita 7:26. Only the ignorant person who does not know this difference between the Lord and the living entities. The living entities, as distinguished from the incognition matter, may be qualitatively equal to the Lord in cognition, but the living entity can never be equal to the Lord in full knowledge of past, present, and future. And because the living entity is only partially cognition, he is sometimes forgetful of his own identity. This forgetfulness is specifically manifested in the field of the Ekpada Vibhuti of the Lord, or in the material world. But in the three-part Vibhuti field of action, or in the spiritual world, there is no forgetfulness by the living entities, who are free from all kinds of contamination resulting from the forgetful state of existence. Material body is the symbol of the gross and subtle form of forgetfulness. Therefore, the whole atmosphere of the material world is called avidya, or omniscience, whereas the whole atmosphere of the spiritual world is called vidya, or full knowledge. So by for the idea, the point that Prabhupada is making from the purport is that the super soul, Supreme Person of God, is the master of all living entities. And as the master, we limited masters, Krishna is the supreme master. We are limited in that we know about the body, our own body. Krishna knows about everybody's. We limited that we may know little about our past, our present, and future, but Krishna knows every past, present, and future. That forgetfulness does not exist in the spiritual world. That forgetfulness of the identity of the living entity only exists in the material world. And Prabhupada is beautifully saying that that forgetfulness is manifested in the form of the material body in gross and subtle forms. So if you have a material body, gross and subtle, it implies, it means you forgot yourself, you forgot your identity. Even though I may not know my identity right now, when I look in the mirror, when I look in the camera, I should know very clearly that there's the gross and I have a subtle body. The fact that I have a gross and I have a subtle body implies that I have forgotten my identity. So gross and material body equals forgetfulness of my true identity. And because of my forgetfulness of my true identity, that contaminates my activities and I become entangled. This does not happen in the spiritual world. There are different stages of avidya, and they are called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. There are different stages of avidya, ignorance, and they are called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Even though people say these are the four main goals of human life, probably saying these are avidya. So just following dharma, following artha, following kama, and following moksha doesn't mean I'm liberated. Doesn't mean I'm very intelligent. No. They're different grades. It's not the goal. Okay, what's the goal? The idea of moksha, or liberation, held by the monist in the matter of oneness of the living entity and the Lord by ultimately merging into one, is also the last stage of materialism, of forgetfulness. Knowledge of the qualitative oneness of the self and super self is partial knowledge, and ignorance also, because there is no knowledge of the quantitative difference, as explained above. The individual self can never be equal to the Lord in cognition. Otherwise, he could not be placed in a state of forgetfulness. So, because the individual self or the living entities are prone to undergo a state of forgetfulness, there is always a gulf of difference between the living entity and the Lord, as between the part and the whole. The part is never equal to the whole. So, conception of 100% quality of the living being with the Lord is also missions. You are not equal in quality 100%. Yes, some little quality there. Quantity, definitely not. In the field of missions, activities are directed towards lording it over creation. In the material world, therefore, everyone is engaged in acquiring material opulence to lord it over the material world. Therefore, there is always clash and frustration, which are the symptoms of missions. So avidya is the issue, the problem. This ignorance and avidya, what are the symptoms? How do I know that I am in ignorance? One is you have a material body, because ignorance means I'm forgetful or I don't know something. So I don't know my identity. How do I know that I don't know my identity? Because you're identifying, you're seeing the material body and the subtle body, seeing this or experiencing the subtle body. Then here are two more symptoms. When there's always clash and frustration, that also means I'm fighting in the environment of ignorance. But in the field of knowledge, there is devotional service to the Lord Bhakti. Therefore, there is no chance of being contaminated by the influence of nishanas or forgetfulness, avidya, in the liberated stage of devotional activities. The Lord is thus the proprietor of the fields of both nishanas and of cognition, and it remains the choice of the living entity to exist in either of the above regions. Choice is yours. Krishna gives you both. You decide. He will always give you both, and will always be your choice. So if there's one thing that you own, that's in your power, that's in your control, is your choice. Otherwise, nothing else belongs to you. The only thing that belongs to you is your desire to choose. That is yours. Everything else is Krishna's. 22. Yasmad andam virad jagne bhutandriya bhutat gunatmaka tadravyam atyagad vishwam gopi surya avatapan. From the personality of Godhead are generated all the universal globes and the universal form, with all the material elements, qualities, and senses. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations, like the sun, which is separated from its rays and heat. The supreme truth has been ascertained in the previous verse as the Purusha or Purushottama, the supreme person. The absolute person is the Ishwar, or the supreme controller, by his different energies. The Ekapad Vibhuti, manifestation of the material energy of the Lord, is just one of the many mistresses of the Lord, by whom the Lord is not so much attracted as indicated in the language of the Gita, Bina Prakriti, but the region of the Tripad Vibhuti, being a pure spiritual manifestation of the energy of the Lord, is, so to speak, more attractive to him. The Lord therefore generates the material manifestation by impregnating the material energy, and then within the manifestation, he expands himself as the gigantic form of the Virat Rupa. The Virat Rupa, as it was shown to Arjuna, is not the original form of the Lord. The original form of the Lord is a transcendental form of Purushottama, or Krishna himself. It is very nicely explained herein that he expands himself just like the sun. The sun expands itself by its terrible heat and rays, yet the sun is always aloof from the rays and heat. So just we covered this aspect of Virat Rupa. Krishna is more attracted to the internal potency, and therefore he associates with internal energy. The external energy is only in relation to the material world, and he has his expansions to cater and interact with those energies. The impersonalist takes into consideration the rays of the Lord without any information of the tangible, transcendental, eternal form of the Lord known as Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the supreme personal form with two hands and a flute. Is bewildering for the impersonalists who can accommodate only the gigantic Vishwarupa of the Lord. They should know that just as the rays of the sun are secondary to the sun, the impersonal gigantic form of the Lord is also secondary to his personal form as Purushottam. The Brahma Samhita 737 confirms this statement as follows. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavi Tabis Tabira Eva Nija Rupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasat Takilak Mabuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the one who enlivens the senses of everyone by his personal bodily rays, resides in his transcendental abode or Goloka. Yet he is present in every nook and corner of his creation by expansion of happy spiritual rays equal in power to his personal potency of bliss. Unquote. He is therefore simultaneously personal and impersonal by his inconceivable potency, or he is the one without a second, displaying complete unity in a diversity of material and spiritual manifestations. He is separate from everything and still nothing is different from him. So this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achintya Bheda Bheda philosophy. Very beautiful philosophy that synergizes the inconceivable oneness and the inconceivable difference of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yes, God is not just impersonal and God is not just personal. We accept both. God is personal and impersonal. You are not just God and you are God. We accept both. You are God and not God. In terms of the context, you are God in terms of minute quality, you're not God in terms of quantity. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought these two diverse aspects, contradictory aspects together and with a proper understanding. 23. Yasyad yasyana bayam nalinad aham asam mahatmana na vidam yagya sambharam purushavaya vanrite. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performance except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. So now Lord Brahma is sharing his realization. When he appeared in this world. Lord Brahma, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, is known as Swayambhuva, or one who is born without father and mother. The general process is that a living creature is born out of sex combination of male father and female mother. But Brahma, the firstborn living being, is born out of the abdominal lotus flower of Mahavishnu's plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. The abdominal lotus flower is part of the Lord's bodily limbs, and Brahma is born out of the lotus flower. Therefore, Lord Brahma is also part of the Lord's body. Brahma, after his appearance in the gigantic hollow of the universe, saw darkness and nothing else. He felt perplexity, and from his heart, he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity, therefore acquiring the ingredients for sacrificial performances. But there was nothing besides the two of them, namely the personality of Mahavishnu and Brahma himself, born of the bodily part of the Lord. For sacrificial performances, many ingredients were in need, especially animals. The animal sacrifice is never meant for killing the animal, but for achieving successful result of the sacrifice. So here the idea is that when the ceremony is performed, to conclude the ceremony, to validate everything was intact, they would offer a old cow or old horse, and in that sacrifice that was bona fide, the animal would come up very young, cow becomes a calf, and the horse becomes a fawn. This was the aspect. But here the point is that Lord Brahma wanted to, when he appeared, he wanted to offer a form of sacrifice, a form of gratitude, but there was nothing to offer. So he was inspired to perform tapa, and then the ingredients manifested. The animals offered in the sacrificial fire is, so to speak, destroyed, but next moment is given a new life by dint of the Vedic hymns chanted by the expert priests. When such an expert priest is not available, the animal sacrifice in the fire of the sacrificial altar is forbidden. So now Prabhupada is going to tell us a little about this aspect of fire sacrifice. First point is, if there is no bona fide priest, you cannot perform the ceremony. So in Kali Yuga, you cannot perform the ceremony. Why? Because there's no bona fide priest. When such an expert priest is not available, the animal sacrifice in the fire of the sacrificial altar is forbidden. Thus, Brahma created even the sacrificial ingredients out of the bodily limbs of the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, which meant that the cosmic order was created by Brahma himself. Also, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 10:8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam paravartate. Everything is made from my bodily limbs, and I am therefore the original source of all creation. The impersonalists argue that there's no use in worshipping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. The personals, however, worship the Lord out of a great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of the bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth, yet Mother Earth is worshipped by a sensible devotee with ingredients born from the earth. Or the example of Ganga. We worship Mother Ganga by taking water, her same water, offering her her water back. Similarly, Prabhupada's giving, Mother Ganges is worshipped with the water of the Ganges, and yet the worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. Worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. Worship of the Lord is also performed with ingredients born from the bodily limbs of the Lord, and yet the worshipper, who is himself a part of the Lord, achieves the result of devotional service to the Lord. While the impersonalists wrongly conclude that he is the Lord himself, the personalists, out of great gratitude, worship the Lord in devotional service, knowing perfectly well that nothing is different from the Lord. The devotee therefore endeavors to apply everything in the service of the Lord, because he knows that everything is the property of the Lord, and that no one can claim anything as one's own. This perfect conception of oneness helps the worshipper in being engaged in his loving service, whereas the impersonal has been falsely puffed up, remains a non-devotee forever without being recognized by the Lord. So why do we offer everything to Krishna? Because everything belongs to him, and as a sign of gratitude, I want to offer everything back to him. 24. Teshu yagnasya pasava sa vanas pataya kusha idam cha devaya janam kalashkoru gunavita. For performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, straws, and also the sacrificial altar and a suitable time, spring. 25. Vastunyosha daya sneha rasalova mridojalam recho yajjumsi samani chatu hotram chasaptama. Other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Sama Veda, and 4 priests to perform the sacrifice. To perform a sacrifice successfully, Prabhupada's purport, at least 4 expert priests are needed. One who can offer hota, one who can chant udgata, one who can kindle the sacrificial fire without the aid of separate fire, advaryu, and one who can supervise, Brahma. So every fire sacrifice needs 4 priests. And Prabhupada is giving the function of each of the priests. One who can offer, so one is doing the offering, hota, one who's chanting the mantras, udgata, one who's kindling the fire without matches, simply with mantra, and one who can supervise. Such sacrifices were conducted from the birth of Brahma, the first living creature, and were carried on till the reign of Mahayudhishthira. were carried on till the reign of Maj Yudhishthira, 5,000 years ago. Implication? Not in Kali Yuga. But such expert Brahmana priests are very rare in the age of corruption and quarrel. And therefore, in the present age, only the yagya of chanting the holy names of the Lord is recommended. Scripture enjoins Harer Nama, Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, Gatiranyata. So the only yagya is chanting the holy names of Krishna. All these ingredients that we have to accumulate, people are so attached to yagyas because why? They've done work. I have to buy these ingredients and I set up the yagya, and it's like there's a whole activity. It's all sentimental. There is no result. There's no tangible result when one performs a fire sacrifice. And in Kali Yuga, there is no qualified Brahmanas to perform the sacrifice. Therefore, it's forbidden. And even if there were qualified Brahmanas to perform the ceremony, it is not recommended. What is the recommended yagya? Yagne Sankirtan Prayajanti Sumedesa. Sankirtan yagya. This is the recommended, chanting the holy names of Krishna. And you can get far more benefits through chanting the holy names in this age than performing fire sacrifices. Another point is Prabhupada introduced fire sacrifice in terms of initiation and wedding and date installation. But even if you see the sacrifice that Prabhupada is that set up, it's mainly chanting the Brahma Samhita, names of Krishna, and the Mangala Charans. That's it. So really, it's coming back to chanting the holy names of Krishna. Let's not waste our time in diverting our attention from the essence or the essential practice, sacrifice for this age. The real sacrifice is chanting the holy names of Krishna. It seems very simple, but it's the most sublime and most perfect process. Just sincerely embrace this, and this process is sufficient, complete, perfect, and pleases the Lord absolutely in this age of hypocrisy and quarrel. 26. Nama deyani mantrascha dakshishnas cha vartani cha devatanu kramakalpa sankalpa tantra evacha. Other necessities include invoking the different names of demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purpose and by specific processes. Report. The whole process of offering sacrifice is under the category of fruitive actions, and such activities are extremely scientific. They mainly depend on the process of vibrating sounds with a particular accent. It is a great science, but due to being out of proper use for more than 4,000 years, for want of qualified brahmanas, such performance of sacrifice are no longer effective, nor are they recommended in this fallen age. Any such sacrifice undertaken in this age as a matter of show is simply a cheating process by the clever priestly order. Let me repeat. Any such sacrifice undertaken in this age as a matter of show is simply a cheating process by the clever priestly order. But such a show of sacrifices cannot be effective at any stage. Fruitive action is being carried out with the help of gross material science. But the materialists await a still more subtle advancement in the process of vibrating sounds, of which the Vedic hymns are established. I was making the point that many of the effects Like, for example, the yogi has the ability to acquire whatever fruit he wants from any place. And Prabhupada says, well, the materialist science are doing that now also. Now we can go to the supermarket and buy a fruit that's throughout the whole season, throughout the whole year. The yogis are able to walk on water. For material science, we can do that. We have a ship, we can boat, we can cross over. The materials, the yogis, they can fly through mantra. Using mantra, they can fly. No? Aeroplanes are doing that. So that's what Prabhupada's point, that these things are not really important. Material science, as advanced, they can achieve. Gross material science cannot help one fulfill the real purpose of human life. So yes, they can do these things that are similar in terms of the effects of these mantras, but ultimately the bottom line is, can you solve the real purpose of life? It can only increase the artificial needs of life without any solution to the problems of life. So even mystic perfection is great, but it does not solve the problem. Therefore, the way of materialistic life leads to the wrong type of human civilization. Since the ultimate aim of life is spiritual realization, the direct way of invoking the holy name of the Lord, as mentioned above, is precisely recommended by Lord Chaitanya, and the people of the age can easily take advantage of the simple process, which is tangible, which is tenable for the condition of the complicated social structure. So Srijat Mahaprabhu is giving this process, recommending, let us embrace it. It has the full potency to give us, as Prabhupada described in text 18, that destination. 27. 3 more verses. Gatoya matas chaiva prayas chitam smaram samar panam purushas vaya ver ete sambara sambratamaya. Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead by the invocation of the demigods' names. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus the compensation and ultimate offering were complete. In this verse, special stress is given to the person of the Supreme Lord and not to the impersonal Brahmajyoti, as being the source of all supplies. Narayan, the Supreme Lord, is the goal of sacrificial results, and therefore the Vedic hymns are ultimately meant for attaining this goal. Human life is thus made successful by pleasing Narayan and getting entrance into the direct association of Narayan in the spiritual kingdom by Vaikuntha. 28. Iti sambrita sambhara purushavaya veraham tam eva purusha yagnam tenevaya jam ishwaram. Thus, I created ingredients and a paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. People in general, for what? People in general are always anxious to have peace of mind or peace in the world, but they do not know how to achieve such a standard of peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable by performance of sacrifice and by practice of austerity. In the Bhagavad Gita 5:29, the following prescription is recommended. Bhaktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam ganapamam shantim richati. Karma yogis know that the Supreme Lord is the factual enjoyer and maintainer of all sacrifices and of the austere life. They also know that the Lord is the ultimate proprietor of all planets and is the factual friend of all living entities. Such knowledge gradually converts the karma yogis into pure devotees of the Lord through the association of unalloyed devotees, and thus they're able to be liberated from material bondage. Brahma, the original living being within the material world, taught us the way of sacrifice. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interests for satisfaction of a second person. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interests for the satisfaction of a second person. If you put your interest second and put somebody's interest first, that means you're sacrificing your interests for the second person. That is sacrifice. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaged in sacrificing his interests for another, either in a form of family, society, community, country, or entire human society. But perfection of such sacrifice is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Person, the Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything, because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures, and because he's the maintainer of the performer of sacrifice, as well as the supply of all the ingredients of sacrifices, it is he only and no one else who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. So everything we have is actually meant to be sacrificed for the pleasure of Krishna and Krishna alone. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, and plans for total improvement of human conditions. But no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord, as it is advised in Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, there is no peace in the world. Prabhupada's to the point. No beating around the bush. Yeah, it's okay. You can do this. No problem. A little here, a little there. Try this, try that. No. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for the advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, plans for total improvement of human society. But no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord. And because of that, it is advising, and because of that, there is no peace in the world. If men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the Supreme Proprietor and friend of all. They must. If they don't, too bad. No peace. 29. Tataste pratara ime prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyakta avyaktam purusham susamahitam. My dear son, thereafter, your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Manifest purport. Manifested personalities are demigods, like the ruler of the heavenly kingdom, Indra, his associates, and the non-manifested personality is the Lord himself. The manifested personalities are mundane controllers of the material affairs, whereas the non-manifested personality of Godhead is transcendental, beyond the range of material atmosphere. In this age of Kali, the manifested demigods are also not to be seen, for space and travel has completely stopped. So both the powerful demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non-manifested to the covered eyes of the modern man. Modern men want to see everything with their eyes, although they are not sufficiently qualified. Consequently, they disbelieve in the existence of demigods or of the Supreme Godhead. God. They should see through the pages of the authentic scriptures and should not simply believe the unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment, love of God. 30. Tatascha manava kale ijere reshayopare pitaro vibhuda taita manushya krotubir vibhum. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind perform sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. The Daityas are the devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are ekanishta, or absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facilities. Because of their realization of their spiritual identity, they are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. So, if we just reverse this purport, if we are if we're interested in material comforts, it simply means you are not seriously interested in spiritual emancipation. It simply means you have not realized that your spiritual identity. And that would imply that you are interested in the benefits of material facilities. But, and that would imply that you are not ekanishta, absolutely attached to devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, the more we become attached to devotional service of the Lord, what would be the consequence? We're not interested in material benefits of material facilities. We don't need to pray. We're not interested in praying to the demigods to get material facilities. Now, we understand our true, we are not only understand, but we're realizing our spiritual identity. And therefore, we become more and more serious about spiritual emancipation, spiritual practice. And we become more interested in spiritual practice than material comforts. Even if the material comforts are not there, even though it's a little difficult and austere, even if I have to spend my time and sacrifice, no problem. Because why? I understand I'm a spiritual being. My goal is to become attached to Krishna. If I don't spend time hearing, chanting the glories of Krishna, how am I expected to become attached to Krishna? If I don't spend time associating with Srimad Bhagavatam, if I don't spend time with Prabhupada through his Bhaktivinoda purports, how do I expect to become attached to Krishna? So therefore, sacrificing our time and coming back to sacrifice everything you have, all your ingredients that you're getting is all coming from Krishna, from the Virat Rupa. Lord Brahma has already explained. He wanted to perform sacrifice. He had to get the sacrifice ingredient from the Lord himself to offer back to the Lord. So everything that we are getting, our time, our energy, our resource, everything is coming from Krishna. It needs to be offered back to Krishna. So there is nothing more valuable in this world than to spend time in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, hearing, glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most perfect way to spend your time. Vantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai, Go Pramanande, Hari Hari Bo. Are there any questions or comments or feedback from devotees? Please share that. Bhagavana Prabhu says, power in the material world is static, causing frustration and envy. Yes. Bhagavana Prabhu says, a person's whole physiology is made of the atoms of sex energy. Person's whole being is filled with the energy of sex. The energy of life itself is the energy of sex. For ages, sages and seers have practiced that we should turn away from sex, that we should banish all thoughts of it and all desire for it, and that we should get rid of these dreams. But these dreams have not left human beings. They cannot live in this way. May I hear your input? There seems to be a point in the above. Well, the only reason they have not left human beings is because those human beings don't want to leave it. Yes, the sages, the seers have spoke about that they need to leave this. Why? Because it's an obstacle. So now, the fact that it has not left human existence is correct, because the human existence that is currently existing, who are delving into these subjects, are prisoners of sex. They're prisoners of this material world. And as prisoners, they won't leave it. Now, the pure devotee comes from the spiritual world. He's out of the prison, coming into the prison, not bound by the laws of the prison, not bound because he broke, or he's not in the prison because he broke the laws of the Lord attached to sex life. Prabhupada said, if you put me in a room of naked women, nothing will happen. Why? Because he's not attached. He's totally transcendental to that disease. He's immune. He's completely immune. What's his immunity? Attachment to Krishna. 100% attachment to Krishna. Absorption, full absorption on the lotus feet of Krishna. Mind, body, and words. Completely. So there is no room for anything else. When your cup is full, there's no room to put anything else. If you want to put anything else, you need to empty the cup. So if you're full of Krishna, Maya cannot enter. When the son of Krishna is there, Maya or darkness cannot enter. Therefore, Prabhupada was able to direct souls to give up sex life. So those who want to come out of the prison of material life, they will slowly give up sex life, completely give up sex life, and be totally free from sex life by embracing a higher taste of Krishna consciousness. And we have many examples. So we see even in the Bhagavatam, there are many examples. Consider Ajamil. He was a Brahmana in the mode of goodness. Then he fell prey just by seeing a prostitute embrace. It got lodged in his consciousness and he became affected. Then he got a prostitute, had 10 children, 13 children, many children. And then he became liberated again. So yes, it's the point that humanity has not left it because they're in the trap. That's true. But it doesn't mean that there are souls that have never left or have not that have given up, that don't exist. Yes, there are many souls who have become liberated from sex life and become free from its powers and bondage. I hope that shared some points on that. Sometimes devotees may say it's very difficult or it's impossible. No, it's not impossible. Yes, it may be difficult, but definitely not possible. It's definitely difficult, but not impossible. Otherwise, Prabhupada wouldn't have given it to us. Prabhupada didn't give us a process that's impossible. Prabhupada was a very practical man, practical personality, transcendental personality. He knew what he was giving us is perfect and complete and practical. And with his blessings, even easy. So yes, Prabhupada said it's definitely possible. Segri says, thank you, dear Prabhu, for an excellent class. Thank you, Shama. Shamananda says, Hare Krishna, lots of amazing points and reminders for us covered today, Prabhu. Revelation of the portion of creation. What is awaiting us in the spiritual world? The binding force of sex life and its resultant complications. Sankirtan Yagya, only Janan sacrifice for this age. No bona fide priest, expert ingredients, and above all, just a show. Yeah. Let's not waste our time. Time is so valuable. Time is so precious. Time is ticking. So, why, if time is ticking and we got so little time, why even bother? Just get to the business. Bafana Prabhu, in the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, family, country, humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling in which a pure living entity feels happiness by the happiness of the Supreme Lord. Yes. So in context, remember Prabhupada's, and that's why, so you need to always refer to the verse in context, right? You'll see here Prabhupada is apparently encouraging this type of outlook. And here that we covered in these purports, Prabhupada is smashing that type of outlook. Why? Because the point that is established in the verse, Prabhupada is elaborating on that. So that's why the context is very, very important. If we go to 2.3.10, you will see the context of the verse and the context of Prabhupada's purport matches. And here, if you go to this verse, similar point Prabhupada is making in relation to the verse, this context doesn't fit. But Prabhupada's context in this purport that we have covered fits. So therefore, when we're quoting, it's always important to quote and understand in context to the verse, and then we'll get the proper understanding. Here, Prabhupada is encouraging a certain part related to that verse. And in this purport, Prabhupada is encouraging a certain aspect related to the verse. I hope that explains that. All right. Thank you very much for everyone's time, feedback. Really appreciate. Mother Lash, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the Krishna Katha. I really enjoy the clarity Srila Prabhupada brings to very challenging, controversial material topics. He makes us press the pause button because we can't refute the message. He makes the unpalatable palatable. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Yes, Prabhupada. And remember, I like to end with this point. We may say Prabhupada's heavy. We may say Prabhupada's straightforward. We may say Prabhupada's to the point. We may say Prabhupada's not accommodating. Prabhupada is saying this from the basis of compassion, of being a well-wisher, of kindness. He's saying this because this is the greatest well-wishing message. Out of compassion, he knows what's on the other side. He's experienced what is on that side. He's a living spiritual Vaikuntha man. As he said, my Guru Maharaj was a Vaikuntha man. So he's also from Goloka Vrindavan. So he's experienced, he knows. And therefore, when somebody is coming from the other side into this world who knows, when they are sharing instructions, they're sharing it with experience and compassion. And therefore, no matter how bitter the truth is, we should see that, yes, this is actually going to be very, very good for me. Let me contemplate, let me think about it, and most important, let me apply it in my life and make my life successful. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai, Go Pramanande, Hari Hari.